My voice hurts so much. I'm gonna be on vocal rest for like the entire month of January. This is awful. I was just about to go to bed because, like, who is staying up till midnight on New Year's? But StoryGraph decided now was a good time to do my reading wrap up. So I'm going to blind react to it. I'm going to go in blind. I don't have any of those like tools that has the screen record, so I'm just gonna take screenshots when I'm editing and like show it to you guys. StoryGraph is the only tracking app that I use. This is not an ad. I'm not paid by them. I just only use them. So this is the only like reading wrapped I'm getting. Here are my statistics, my 2025 reading wrap up. Congratulations on a fantastic reading year. I finished 68 books and 23,650 pages. I'm surprised that it's an even number. My first book was The Martian by Andy Weir, and my last book that I finished was Smother Moss by Elisa Allering, narrated by Susan Bennett. I was in the middle of, well, not middle, but I had started Horse by Geraldine Brooks and Bunny, but I did not finish them by the end of the year. That means that one of them is going to be my first book of 2026. A mood map of your year. Later books push the line up and darker books pull the line down. So according to this, I started really, really light and went very dark. I do remember that I read a lot of Appalachian horror later in the year because, I don't know, it got really interesting. I was very excited about Appalachian horror. And so around June, it just plummets into July and August. I read a lot of darker books. I don't even remember what I read in July and August, but apparently they were very dark. I don't know. I know I didn't read a lot in the earlier months. I do remember reading the Warrior Cat series, so obviously I wouldn't consider those light, but they are middle grade, so I guess they're lighter. Um but I The Martian also isn't very light. Okay, whatever. I read some lighter books in the beginning of the year. I feel like my last one kind of went up and down, and this one goes straight down. It does not go back up. You wandered through tales tinged with shadow, chased horizons and daring escapades, and daring I'm on my fourth glass of wine, guys. And daring escapades, and felt every heartbeat on the page. A steady rhythm of stories kept the year moving along nicely. I love these little things that they do. My biggest reading month by far was May, and then it plummets for June. Goes back up a little bit in July. August it plummets. September, October it plummets. November and December it goes back up. Wow. The genres I spent the most time with in 2025 was fantasy, young adult, horror, middle grade, and historical. That's interesting. Those are definitely different than last year's. Fantasy is always one of my biggest ones. Horror is creeping up there. I've gotten into a lot of dark fantasies, and because dark fantasy is also usually classified as horror, I can see why it was creeping up there. Young adult, I don't remember a lot of young adult books. So obviously I know why middle grade was there, because I read the entirety of the Warrior Cat series. I was going to make a video on them and then I didn't, but I will next year because my sibling told me to. So um historical, I think that means classics. I think that means classics, not ones set in a historical time period, although I did read a few of those. My longest book was Wool by Hugh Howey. I read that recently for a vlog. You can go see that video if I can figure out how to do it. I'll put it in the little, maybe I'll put it in the description. I don't know how. But I read that all in one day. Well, not the whole book in one day. I had gotten through like almost 200 pages, and then I read 400 pages in one day. So. And my shortest book was Graveyard Shift by ML Rio. This was an audiobook, so it was only 3 hours and 9 minutes. I'm sure I read that on like 1.5 speed, so it probably didn't even last me 3 hours. The average length of books you read was 315 pages, and it took you around 10 days to finish each book. This year, I had a lot of issues finishing books. When it was audiobooks, I usually try and keep my audiobooks below 8 hours so I can get them done in a day. Don't know why. I just don't like listening to the same book over multiple days. I love reading books over multiple days, but not listening to them. I did this right after filming my other video. My voice is still going out. I've been talking way too much. Anyway, I think 300 is kind of my sweet spot. I don't really like when it goes closer to 400. I'll read it. Obviously I will, but I don't really like when it does that. And I don't I don't like a short book. I think there are a lot of short books that I have enjoyed, but most of the time 290 to 300 is my sweet spot. Least time spent was Into the Wild by Aaron Hunter, the Warrior Cats book. And most time spent was 369 days. How is that possible? I don't know how. Trust Exercise by Susan Choi. I think what may have happened is I tried to read it last year, put it down, but did not. Maybe I paused it, but I don't remember having it last year. I don't. I know I got it in Waukegan, but I don't remember starting it. That's weird. I may have removed the book and then clicked it in some way. I don't know. I'm very interested in how I claimed, because I remember trying to start it earlier this year, but 369 days is over a year. And I remember starting it in like April. So I don't know why it says that. I think I might have clicked that I was gonna read it and then didn't. It might have been in my up next for a really long time and then it just wasn't up next. That might have been it. The authors you spent the most time with is Aaron Hunter. I did read the entirety of the first section of the Warrior Cats, the first 6. I like to call them seasons, but they are just different series because they focus on different, and they're in the same world. You guys get it. You understand the Warrior Cats. Anyway, Aaron Hunter, I read 6 books. Suzanne Collins, I read The Hunger Games in preparation for Sunrise on the Reaping. I still have yet to read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I don't know if I'm interested in it. I watched the movie. The movie was interesting, but not enough that I'm interested in reading the entire book. And Emily B. Martin, I read 2 books by them. So obviously I was not reading a lot of series this year. I did focus on standalones a lot. My average rating was 3.82 stars. I'm going to have to look back to see if that is higher or lower than my average rating last year. I do remember DNFing a lot more books than last year because maybe not a lot more because I was going through that TBR challenge that I had. I don't know. I do remember not adding a bunch of books to my StoryGraph because I DNF'd them so quickly that I didn't even have time to start them on StoryGraph. My 5-star reads include Life Hacks for Little Aliens, Wool, Maurice, The Hounding, The Starving Saints, and then a couple, I think every nonfiction I read, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty, From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty, Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green, the first John Green I think I've ever rated 5 stars. My Best Friend's Exorcism, which I don't know if reading that again, if I would rate that 5 stars. Grady Hendrix was interesting, but at the time I hadn't been reading a lot of horror. I think I've read more horror that I enjoyed more. And then Full Metal Alchemist is on there because when is it not? I did complete my Full Metal Alchemist collection, by the way. I don't know if I ever said that in another video, but I did get all of the omnibus versions of Full Metal Alchemist. I have every single volume. I've read every single volume, and I love it. It's so good. Okay, my 2025 ratings. My highest rating was 3 stars. My second highest rating was 4 stars, and my third highest rating was 5 stars. I don't really use the percentages unless a book really has me thinking about it, especially this year. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I am a broken record with this. This reading year was not it for me. I did not feel very strongly about any books that I read. I had some books that I really loved, but I wouldn't say they were life changing. In fact, the books that I felt strongly enough to give 5 stars, almost all of them I read in the later half of the year. Something about the first half of the year, maybe it was just because we moved and I was getting used to Tennessee. I hated every book that I read. I forgot every book that I read. The ones that stuck out to me were the nonfiction books, which is surprising for me. Oh, my voice is going out. Oh my God. I don't think I've done this much talking in a really long time. Oh my gosh. There were quite a few books that I didn't rate because once I finished them, I was like, I have no feelings about this book, so I'm not going to rate it. Why would I talk about it if I had no feelings about it? Most of that was during the summer in that really, really big, long reading wrap up that contained 3 months worth of books. But yeah, I just felt really disconnected from everything I read. So most things were just 3 stars because it was like, oh, I didn't DNF it. So some months were better than others. March apparently was my highest average rating. Turns out August wasn't your favorite month with an average rating of 2.94. I don't remember what I read in August. And May was my most read pages of 3,641 pages. That's so weird because I remember my September reading wrap up as my favorite. Maybe it's because it was more recent, but I remember September being like my favorite month. I don't remember anything in March. What did I read in March? Okay, so other StoryGraph users also read The Hunger Games, probably because Sunrise on the Reaping came out and people were reading the original trilogy. It is the most shelved with 8,700, no, 876,174 users. My rating was 5 stars. I did enjoy it. And my least shelved was Voices in Giant Cities by Art Cliff. Only 6 users. My rating was 2 stars, but it was a poetry book. I'm not well versed in poetry. It just didn't speak to me. This is an indie author, so it doesn't surprise me that StoryGraph doesn't have a lot of users shelving this book. I think I had to put the cover on this book, like because I wanted a pretty cover. It did not have a cover on the entry for it. My highest rated book for like other people was Full Metal Alchemist Volume 3. Did I read Volume 3 this year? Really? I'm due for a reread. I just finished rereading the last volume, but now that I have them all, I'm going to read them all in order. So I explored the works of 54 new authors. 26 of the books I read were part of a series. Half a Soul, obviously Full Metal Alchemist, and I decided to go back down memory lane once with one reread this year. Technically, it was a few. There were just a few books that I didn't log onto StoryGraph because I didn't read them at the time that I had StoryGraph. So in April, I reread The Great Unknowable End by Catherine Ormsby, We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, which apparently she has another book out. She's gotten so popular that she wrote another book in the same universe, which I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical. I don't really want to read it, but I also feel like I have to. So we'll see if we'll read that one by E. Lockhart. And then what was the other one I read? A History of Glitter and Blood by Hannah Moskowitz. I reread that. Both of those I read way before I had StoryGraph, so counting them as a reread didn't really count, according to StoryGraph. You decided not to finish 14 of the books you picked up this year. I think that it is 2 more than last year. I'll have to double check. I read 27 books from my own shelf this year. I do think this is a bit not true because I do have a habit of adding books and not saying that I own them. So like I don't think I have it down on StoryGraph that I own like The Princess Bride yet. I bought it, I have it, I put it on my TBR, and I'm just really bad at saying that I own it. So it's another button I have to click. I forget about it. I'm sorry. And my 2025 at a glance. So it just kind of does all of the books in order as I read them. Wow. So my paces were mainly medium paced. I had 55% medium, 5% fast. No, what did I get 5%? 36% fast and 9% slow. I don't like a slow book. I will usually DNF it if in the first 30 pages it's not grabbing me. I do prefer a fast or a medium paced book. The thing with these stats is it takes into account what you describe the book as, but it's kind of an average of what all of the users say. So if I think something is medium paced and others say it's fast, it's going to be listed as fast and all of that. So when it comes to this, take it with a grain of salt. I prefer 300 to 49 pages with 54% of the books I read this year, and 300 pages are 41%. I think it's under 300 pages. So I read a lot of smaller books, but I also read within that 300 sweet spot that I talked about. And only 4% of the books I read were 500 plus pages. And I think most of those are the Full Metal Alchemist novels. I read 7% nonfiction, 93% fiction. I do think that is an improvement. I was just looking at my stats last year. I read only 4% nonfiction. One of my goals this year was to read more nonfiction, so it is slightly more. Not that much more, but slightly. For my format, I read mostly audio and print, 41% print, 40% audio, and 19% digital. Something about digital just doesn't jive with me. I'll read it, but it's not my favorite format. It's print and audio are pretty much neck for neck, obviously. And I think those are all the stats I can go over. I don't think there's any other. Oh, my moods. My moods were mainly dark, adventurous, and emotional. I really like dark books. A lot of the books, like I said, were more focused on psychological horror, Appalachian horror, some sort of dark fantasy. I don't know. I felt very moody, dark, scary this year. Also, again, it's kind of like what other people describe the mood as. So if a lot of other people describe it as dark and I describe it as like a cloudy walk in the park, it's going to be considered dark. So take that with a grain of salt, but I did delve more into like psycho horrors and Appalachian mysticism and darker fantasies, some darker literary novels that had some like really, really depressing storylines and emotional. That makes sense. I love to read books that make me cry. I don't know why, but I don't read books for a silly fun time. I actually get very annoyed with books when they're a silly fun time. I feel like I'm wasting my time. I feel like I need to cry to really enjoy a book. I don't know what that says about me. I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. So now you know that. Anyway, that was my 2025 StoryGraph wrap. So I will make a cute little graphic and post it on my Instagram for that. But I think I will also try and take screenshots and edit that into the video, hopefully. But that was my reaction. I just was like literally getting ready for bed and saw the notification pop up that it was ready. So I was like, oh, let me blind react. That'll be a cool video. Okay. Have fun. Be safe. I will see you in the new year. I love you. Okay, bye. Too much wine. I think that's the diagnosis. Too much wine.